This is Shani Bechhofer. This video is about the coronavirus, COVID-19. I'm just making a video with some basic facts, no fiction, and a few recommendations. I'll be making a separate video with more detailed information. But for now, it just seems important to me that we at least all share the same information. So, what is the coronavirus? I'm going to say what it is. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we should do, whether it's dangerous and what is real and not real about what we're hearing, and then what we should do and what we can do, particularly with Purim coming up. All right, coronavirus is a family of viruses. There are many types of coronaviruses. There could be a cold, it could be a flu, it could be what's now the outbreak that we have now in the world called COVID-19. In this video, I may say the word coronavirus, but I am referring to COVID-19. Now, many coronaviruses have been infecting people for a long time, but there are also coronaviruses that affect animals. When those viruses skip from animals to people, which can happen, it happened with SARS, it happened with MERS, and now it happened with COVID-19. When that happens, our bodies are not prepared to deal with it. And that's part of why the current COVID-19 is so severe. So what do we know about it? We know that it is both more contagious and more dangerous than the flu. It is similar to the flu, just like if you bake challah with flour and water and salt and sugar and yeast, and I do it, they still would be similar, but they might come out very differently depending on how we did it. Just because something is a coronavirus, look, a flu is different than a cold, and COVID-19 is different than the flu. So let's talk about just how dangerous and how contagious it is. And the first thing we have to say is our numbers that we have are of limited accuracy, right? Most of the numbers that we could get, at least the numbers that would stretch out, tell us something about the COVID-19, how it acts over some period of time, those would have to come from China. And the Chinese government is not necessarily trustworthy in what they say about their numbers and the incidence of COVID-19 and so on and so forth. So I take those with a grain of salt. We do have cruise ships that have, just a limited number of people on them, and they can observe what happened in those groups. Those are not randomly selected groups. We have information from South Korea, from Italy, etc. The World Health Organization collects it, so we know something. Now, when you read something like the mortality rate is 3.4% or 2% or some number of that, obviously that's not a percentage of the total number of people who have this virus. We have no idea how many people actually have the virus. It's of the number of cases, right? Same with the flu. Every time I or you get the flu, we don't immediately get on the phone to the CDC to report it, Center for Disease Control. So their numbers are the numbers of cases that they know about, and then the rates of various levels of illness and various outcomes in those numbers. So be aware that as the amount of testing, God willing, goes up, then the percentage of everything out of the total will go down. But it will still be dangerous. So let's talk about that very briefly. Let's understand that if the mortality rate is 2%, only 2%, then that means not that each and every American has a 2% chance of dying if they get it. It means that on average, but we have to understand that for people over 60, their percentage is higher. For people over 70, the percentage currently with the current inaccurate numbers, okay, but is more like 14%. And then over 80, it's even higher than that. So it is a dangerous virus for somebody who is older, for somebody who's immunocompromised, their immune system doesn't work properly, or for somebody with underlying health challenges like heart disease, various pulmonary lung breathing issues, serious ones, right? So when we think about how dangerous is this, it's not like Ebola, which has a very high rate, but it is more dangerous than regular influenzas. And even, as you know, some years flu is worse. Some say this is a very bad year of flu, right? So this is worse than your common flu, and we definitely don't want to have it, right? It's not something that's just like la-di-da. And that takes me to the next question. How contagious is it? Again, we only know what we know, but from what we know, it is more contagious than a regular flu. There's an R number, which says how many people are typically infected from one person, and it is higher for coronavirus for COVID-19 than it is for other coronaviruses like the influenza that we are used to. Why is it so contagious? We're not 100% sure, so let me tell you what we do know, what I have researched that I believe is true about how this is transmitted. And I will tell you when there's stuff that we don't really know for sure, okay? It's apparently transmitted through drops that come out of your nose or mouth of an infected person. And then they come into the nose, mouth, or eyes of someone else. That person can get it. So, as you know, when somebody sneezes, you know, like there's all these drops that just go flying out all over the place, and those can land on people or on objects. Even if you sneeze into a tissue, you sneeze into the tissue and you throw it in the garbage, okay, first of all, you still have on your hands some of that liquid, and also, let's say you throw it in the garbage and it misses and it bangs into the cupboard, and then you pick it up and you put it in the garbage can. So there's something touched the cupboard. All right. Same with coughs. Even breathing. If you like breathe out onto a window in the winter, you know that there's like steam. There's sort of like this vapor that comes out. All right. Well, they don't know exactly like what size droplets do and do not like carry them. Like, for example, after you sneeze or something, there's it's called aerosol, like little teeny weeny particles that remain in the air. They're not like droplets, but they're like little teeny weeny. So they don't know whether it spreads by that or not. Another thing they don't know is how long it remains on surfaces. So, for example, in general, looking at MERS, SARS, and other ones, you know, we know how long those last on steel, on aluminum, on wood, on metal. You know, they've done studies of paper, glass, plastic. They've done studies of these things. So they can only really guess how long COVID-19 remains. Some of these things remain for 2 to 8 hours. Some of these remain up to 28 days, right? It's just, so we don't really know how long it sticks around. That's why they're telling us wash our hands and clean up a lot, clean surfaces a lot. Wash your hands, with soap and water, and count to 20 seconds, right? I would just say 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. If somebody else wants to make a video with a special song that tells you how long to do it, fine. But you want to wash your hands carefully because we constantly are touching not only ourselves, but surfaces that others may have touched. Now, what about, so it is more contagious, and the rate of contagion of COVID-19, if there's no intervention, okay, if you don't do anything to stop it spreading, appears to be that it will double every 7 days, right? So if you've ever done one of those math problems where you have $100 in a bank and it doubles every whatever. How long will it take to be a millionaire? You know that these numbers get big relatively quickly. Okay, and for whatever reason, whether it's because they last a long time on surfaces, whether it's because it's actually very little droplets that transmitted, whether it's because if you get it even anywhere like a teeny weeny little bit near an opening of your your mouth or your nose or whatever, it just makes you sick. They don't know, at least as far as I can tell, they don't know exactly why it is more contagious, but it is. So you have something that is somewhat more contagious than the flu and somewhat more dangerous than the flu. You put those things together and it could have bad outcomes. That is why we're concerned about it. We're not concerned about it because, somebody immediately is going to just, be hospitalized the moment that somebody sneezes on them. But we're not unconcerned about it because, hey, it's a coronavirus just like the flu or just like the cold. It's not the same. It is not time to panic, whatever that means. So if you are anxious, what can I tell you? See somebody about it. This is not something where we all have to hide in a hole in the ground for the next year and a half until they come up with a vaccine. But we should be smart and we should be responsible. So let me tell you some things about how to do that. First of all, let's talk about gloves, masks, and Purell. Gloves, those plastic disposable gloves, that you wear in the kitchen when you're cooking and so on. I like to wear those sometimes. First of all, if I go out, if I'm going to the grocery store, I'm going somewhere public and I'm going to touch surfaces, it's just easier for me if I'm wearing a pair of those gloves. I know it's not getting on me, and I'm unlikely to take my hand when I have those plastic gloves on and stick it in my mouth or nose or whatever. You just don't tend to do it that way. So for me, it helps. It's not necessary. If you wash your hands frequently, it basically accomplishes, and you don't touch your face, it accomplishes the same thing. Purell is very convenient. Purell or similar alcohol-based things. It's better to wash your hands with water and soap. That is better. If you are out and about and you cannot get to soap and water, then Purell is nice to have. Don't go spending $100 on a little bottle of Purell. That's not necessary. You don't need Purell. But what doesn't work is, let's say, baby wipes. That's not going to work because they don't have enough. They shouldn't work because they don't have enough alcohol on them to clean you off. Do not use like Clorox bleach wipes on your hands all the time. Don't do that. Okay, that's not good for you. Wash frequently. I use a paper towel after I wash my hands right now because I'm just afraid that what if little drops of coronavirus or of COVID are dripping off my hands and then I put them on the towel and somebody else gets it. Okay, but that's just me. I never read that anywhere that you need to do that. But I did read that using those blow dryers in those hand blow drying things that are in public bathrooms is not a good idea. Those blow the little water droplets all over the place, and you can imagine it's like a big sneeze, big hot sneeze. So don't use those. Masks. Those masks, those like blue ones that go over your, they look like they have a fan and they go over like this. You wear them in the hospital. You pick them up in the hospital. Those do not protect you from COVID-19. What they do is, if you have it, they help make it less likely that you're going to give it to somebody else, right? So if you sneeze or cough or whatever, you should sneeze obviously into your elbow and all that stuff. Even if you're wearing a mask, it's a good idea to do that. So if you, let's say you've been put into quarantine because you've been exposed to somebody who had it, then those masks could be helpful because you won't go around infecting other people, and you won't be breathing all over all the surfaces that you come into contact with. You have to very carefully remove them and put them in the garbage when you're done with it, and wash your hands off very carefully and not touch the inside and blah blah blah. All right, they're not crucial. If you think you might be infected, or you just want as a public service to everybody around you to just wear one of those masks, so just in case, you can do that. The masks that would protect you are the N95. They are like these big white like shell-like things, okay, they're telling you not to wear them. The fact of the matter is, you could wear them and they would protect you, but the problem is there are not enough masks in the United States right now. There are not. I think maybe there's a worldwide shortage, but there's definitely a shortage in the United States. And the people who really, really we need to have masks for are nurses and doctors. You can imagine that if we got sick and wanted to go to the hospital or needed some care and half the nurses were home sick with COVID-19, that would be very, very bad for everybody else who needs, healthcare workers. So they're asking us not to use those things because we need them for the healthcare workers. Why don't they have enough of them right now? Don't ask me, all right? I would stockpile supplies, but that's just me, but they don't have enough. So that's why we're being asked. And, if you're normally walking around the street, you don't need to wear one of those masks. And we'll talk about afterwards some, who shouldn't be walking around necessarily out and about. So that's why they say not to wear those N95 masks, because there really aren't enough. All right. And we need to, and if we stockpile or hoard them in our homes, then when we need to have a doctor or a nurse hospital, they're not going to be, we can't let them just go without the right protection. Okay, so that's with regard to contagion, and that's with regard to mortality rates. Mortality rates are higher for older people. Now, here's what, from everything I've read, now I know I'm very aware of the CDC criteria and so on and so forth. However, I'm just telling you what I would advise. You don't have to listen to me, but this is what I would do, and this is how I would advise people whom I love and care about to conduct themselves. If you're over 70, stay away from crowded places. I would not fly. I would not take public transportation if you can avoid it. And really guard yourself, because unfortunately there hasn't been an aggressive testing regime here in the United States or in the Orthodox community for sure. And we know that right now we are a hot spot. Okay, that's just the way it is. Any one of us could have told anybody that if there's a case in New Rochelle, here's where they should look next. Besides New Rochelle, they should look Lakewood, Muncie, Flatbush, 5 towns for Rockaway, Passaic, Teaneck, maybe a couple other places. We know that. I guess they don't know that, or they're not bothering to track. Okay, so when young people say, oh, I can get it because it's not so dangerous at my age, or children, thank God, appear to generally, when they get it, have very mild cases, and they do get it. They do get it. There have been studies. It's not that they don't catch it. It's just that they have such mild cases that you don't really know. But they can spread it. Okay? If I'm not so nervous to get it, I hope that, I'll be fine. But I would be horrified if I would have it and then give it to somebody who is older, and that would be very bad. So we have to protect those who are more vulnerable. That includes people who are over 70, even people who are over 70 that are feeling really spry and perfectly fine. They are theoretically at elevated risk. And when we say, we're talking about more like, over 10%, not just like from 2% to 3% or something. Again, take the numbers with a grain of salt. So for those who are older, I would really say, if somebody can lay in Megillah for you at home tonight or tomorrow, do it. Okay, that's what I would advise. I'm not a posek, I'm not a rabbi, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that right now this is spread in our community, and we don't know how many there are. And therefore, I would err on the side of caution. Certainly don't take public transportation if you don't have to. If you do, wear gloves, wash your hands a lot. Don't sit like really close to somebody. If somebody's sniffling, just change seats, even if they think you're rude, you know, it doesn't matter. So protect yourself. And I would say to everybody else, if your child has a fever, don't send your child to school, okay? Don't send them to school for now. Now, we talked about the flu. We compared this to the flu and said it's worse than the flu. I don't want to poo-poo the flu. Let's not poo-poo the flu. Okay, the flu is bad, and you shouldn't, and it should be, we should be doing more to make sure that doesn't spread. So I'm not saying it's only for COVID-19, but right now, because this is something more, we have a different sort of epidemic. So therefore, this is not the time to give your kids some Tylenol and say, okay, I hope they're going to be okay, and send them to school. Because what if they have it? And what if, chas v'shalom, their principal or their teachers, or some older person gets it from them? What if their grandparents get it? Okay, so be cautious with your children, because you know that, even if you tell them to wash their hands a lot, and even if you tell them not to touch their nose and their mouth and blah, 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 and how to sneeze, they might not do it exactly correctly, and we don't want them to be vectors. We don't want them to be sort of like the ones who carry the illness and make other people who are more vulnerable ill. So we all should think about not just I'm protecting myself, because I know a lot of us say, oh, I'm not feeling so great, but I'm going to go to work because, I can power through this. I can do it. But just consider that if you go to work and you have a fever, or you send your kid to school and they have a fever, you could be infecting other people without even knowing it. And you really don't want to do that. With regard to Purim, I'm not sure really what to say. I know that people want to go to shul for Purim. If your child has a fever and they have a gorgeous costume and they really, really, really want to go to shul, keep them at home. Okay, take a picture of them, share the picture with everybody, put it into a contest of costumes. I know it feels bad, but not infecting other people is more important, and kids will get over this. If you have beautiful shalach manas that you made and you didn't really think about it, so you were breathing and you didn't have gloves and you didn't really wash your hands so well, or you have a fever, or you went to that wedding in the atrium where those waiters who have it were at, or something like that, I hate to say this, but maybe those shalach manos are just not going to get given this year. It's okay. There's no halacha that we have to give out 50 shalach manos. There's no halacha that if we made it, we must give them to people. If you can keep all your surfaces clean, very, clean meaning being sanitized, and you can wear a mask or something like that while you're cooking it. I happen to have one of these big masks that makes me look like an insect because I do some painting and stripping of furniture. But if you're wearing a mask and gloves and you're, that you'll know yourself. But when I get a package of food or a package of anything that's delivered to my door now, I wear gloves when I open it up, right? So if the delivery man comes and you have to sign the thing with your finger, immediately wash your hands because you don't know. Other people have been touching that. Just channel your inner OCD a little bit, okay, for right now, and be careful and think of your responsibility to the elderly. And the last thing I would say is nursing homes. There's two more things to say. Nursing homes. Do not go to visit a nursing home. For sure, don't go if you have a fever. And I would say that for the next little while, until we have a handle on who has this virus and who doesn't, I would avoid walking into a nursing home and, God forbid, causing something like what's happening in Seattle, where they have a huge outbreak in a nursing home. People who are elderly are more vulnerable. Schools, I will just, if anybody's listening here that is in a position to do so, I would say make sure to send a note to the teachers assuring them that if they have a fever, they are not to come to school and they will not be docked pay for not coming. This is very important. Maybe there's somebody out there who could start a fund for teachers who have to stay home because they have a fever and they don't want to infect anybody, and they work in a school which only pays you when you show up by the hour. If that's the case, we really need to support people to make good decisions and not put people in a position where they're going to have to make very difficult choices. We shouldn't do that as a community. All right, I will make another video with some more detailed background information, but for now I just felt that I wanted to have some facts out there so we could all share the information, and we won't be overly panicky, and we won't be insufficiently cautious. We need to be cautious and responsible, and take care of ourselves and take care of others in every way we can. Anyway, I want to wish you a good Purim, and the joy of Purim is not about the joy of showing off our shalach manos or showing off this or that or showing up here or there. The joy of Purim is an inner joy. It is a spiritual joy, and you can do it. If you are in quarantine, you can still have the joy of Purim, and give me a call. If you can't visit a nursing home, call people in nursing homes. There's a lot of chesed that we can do while being cautious for this COVID-19. God willing, they will have a treatment, some effective treatments soon. They should have those before they have the vaccinations. Vaccinations could be a year and a half, even longer, till they have a vaccine for the COVID-19, but they are working on treatments that will be effective. So we have to buy ourselves time till those treatments are ready. Try to contain this as much as we can. Bear in mind that in Israel they have over 100,000 people in self-quarantine. So if we feel sorry for ourselves, they are being much more aggressive about containing the virus, and hopefully that'll work. That will work there. So I want to wish us all a joyous Purim of spiritual joy and all the good things. And if you're fasting today, have a safe and easy fast, a meaningful fast, and we should hear, God willing, good news that will make all of our lives safer. And in the meantime, we will know what to do, and we will be responsible members of our community and of the world. Okay? Bye-bye.